Okay, picture this. You're in a massive business deal, right? Millions of dollars on the line. The other side doesn't pay up, so you do the logical thing. You sue them to get what you're owed. Seems like a simple, direct first move in a chess game. But what if that very move, that simple, obvious step, was actually a brilliant trap set for you? What if suing to win actually guaranteed you were going to lose?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, literally. At the heart of the legal fight we're breaking down today, it's a wild story about how just a few words in a legal document could flip a totally straightforward case on its head. So let's meet the players. In one corner, we've got Singapore Airlines, a huge global airline. They're the seller. And in the other corner, we have CSDS Aircraft Sales and Leasing, a big-time aircraft dealer based in the US. They're the buyer. And they struck a deal for one very, very expensive piece of machinery. And what was the price tag? A cool $6.5 million for one plane, a Boeing B777. So you can see the stakes here were incredibly high. The contract seemed simple enough, but oh boy, the problem started almost right away.
So they signed the deal in September of 2018. But then October rolls around and CSDS misses a payment. Then another one, and another. In fact, they missed payments on at least 6 different dates. So SIS sends a formal letter of demand, basically saying, hey, pay up by October 26 or else. That day comes and goes. Still no money. At this point, it's crystal clear. CSDS has broken the deal. So with CSDS failing to pay, Singapore Airlines found itself at a huge fork in the road. You see, in contract law, when the other side breaks the deal this badly, you can't just sue. You first have to make a really fundamental choice about what you actually want to happen next.
This wasn't just some small mistake. Legally, it's called a repudiatory breach. Just think of it as a deal-breaking failure. It's so serious that it gives the innocent party, SIA in this case, the power to just rip up the contract and walk away entirely. And that breach opened up 2 completely different paths for them to take.
And this is the choice every business needs to understand. Path 1 is to terminate. SIA could just say, you know what, the deal's off. They end the contract and then sue CSDS for damages, for all the money they lost because the sale fell apart. Path 2 is to affirm. This is the total opposite. You choose to keep the contract alive and kicking, and you go to court to force the other guy to finish what they started. And that legal tool for Path 2, for forcing the deal, has a specific name, specific performance. It's basically a court order that points at the other party and says, you sign this, you will follow through. And guess which path SIA chose at first? Yep, Path 2. And this right here is where the trap was about to be sprung. You're not going to believe this. CSDS came back with this incredibly slick argument. They claimed that by suing to force the sale, SIA had unknowingly walked right into a legal trap, a trap that, if it worked, would actually make SIA, not CSDS, the one breaking the contract. So here's exactly what went down. On October 31st, just 5 days after that final missed deadline, Singapore Airlines filed their lawsuit. Their goal was simple: get their money and make CSDS take the plane. But the exact words they used in that lawsuit, well, they became the battlefield for this whole dispute. And here it is, the actual language from the court filing. Now listen closely. They asked for an order for specific performance, but then they added this little phrase, in the alternative, damages to be assessed. Remember that phrase, in the alternative. Those 3 words are the key that unlocks this entire case. See, the whole trap was built around this legal idea of affirmation. All it means is that you've made a clear final choice to keep the contract going, even though the other side messed up. And CSDS's whole argument was that SIA's lawsuit was exactly that, a final, locked-in decision. So here's the trap in a nutshell. CSDS argued that the second SIA filed that lawsuit asking for specific performance, they effectively gave up their right to ever cancel the contract over those missed payments. It's like CSDS was saying, gotcha, you chose to keep the deal alive. No takebacks. That door is closed forever. So get this, just a few days later, on November 4th, SIA formally terminated the contract anyway, and CSDS pounced. They claimed that since SIA had already affirmed the deal with a lawsuit, this termination was actually illegal. In this wild, twisted argument, CSDS was now claiming that SIA was the one in breach of contract. They tried to turn the victim into the villain. So, did this crazy legal gambit actually work? Not a chance. The Singapore Court of Appeal saw right through this whole thing, and they took the trap apart piece by piece with some beautiful, clear reasoning. It really came down to two simple steps. First, the court just read the words SIA used, and that little phrase, in the alternative, was everything. The court said, look, this is obviously not a clear and unequivocal choice. SIA was basically telling the court, plan A is to force the deal, but if that doesn't work out, we want to switch to plan B and get our damages. They were clearly keeping their options open. But then the court went even further. They said that even if SIA hadn't used those magic words, it still wouldn't be a permanent trap. And this quote just nails the logic perfectly. The judgment explains that when you ask for specific performance, you're not making some forever promise. It's a temporary choice. You're basically asking the court to help you keep the deal going, but you're not signing away your right to pull the plug if things don't get fixed. It's not, as the judge said, an eternal and unconditional affirmation.
And so the final ruling was as clear as day. The trap failed. The court found that Singapore Airlines had absolutely not trapped themselves. Their decision to terminate the contract a few days later was totally 100% valid.
So why should we care about this fight between two giant companies? Because this whole thing is a masterclass in legal strategy, and it lays out some critical rules of the road for anyone who finds themselves in a broken deal. So here are the big takeaways. First, for you to be truly trapped by your own choice, that choice has to be completely unmistakably clear. Second, never forget the power of that phrase, in the alternative. It's your legal safety net. And third, and maybe most importantly, suing to force the deal doesn't mean you're stuck forever. The law is smart enough to know that things can go south, and it gives you the flexibility to change your strategy. Ultimately, this case is a brilliant reminder that in business, your first move doesn't have to be your last. And it leaves us with a really critical question to think about. In the high-stakes chess match of contract law, how do you make sure you always leave yourself a way out?